Let's go through some of that with House Budget Committee Ranking Member Jason Smith of Missouri. Congressman, overall, isn't this so-called COVID relief bill more about rewarding special interests like federal workers than it is beating the virus?
It's great to be with you. The Biden bailout bill clearly is the wrong plan at the wrong time for all the wrong reasons. If you get to the details of it, you will see how Pelosi, Schumer, Biden are using this piece of legislation to reward their political friends, their allies, their donors, and politicians who've been very helpful to them.
Let's look at the overall money that is being spent on education. And we all love education. We want our kids to be back in school. It's a great boon to American industry. But when you look at this amount of money, there was $30 billion in the first CARES Act passed in March for education, then $82 billion in the December package. That comes to $113 billion, only $60 billion. Well, we have $60 billion left of that money, but now we have another $170 billion proposed in this new act, so-called COVID Act. All of this adds to more than 4 times the annual budget of the Department of Education. Again, we love schooling, but nobody's in school right now, in public schools anyway, because of what's happening. And we're going to spend more than 4 times what we usually do on education. What's going on here?
What's even worse is that $100+ billion that's appropriated in the Biden bailout bill, only 5% will in fact be spent in fiscal year 21. The remainder isn't spent until fiscal year 22 or after. It's absolutely ridiculous. What the folks want across this country, they want to have their kids in a classroom learning. They want to make sure that they can go to their job, and they want these lockdowns to end. This money that they're throwing around is crazy. I've asked the Biden administration, I've asked his 2 top economists, how much money has not been spent in the prior 5 packages, because the numbers that we have, over $1 trillion is still left out there from the 5 prior pieces of legislation, and now they're asking for another $1.9 trillion. It's so unnecessary.
How about thinking of taxpayers, by the way? How about giving taxpayers a voucher for the amount of money that they are spending for their kids' education? Give them a voucher, and if they want to go to a charter school or if they want to go to a parochial school that are open, let them use that. It's their money. It's our money that's being spent to educate our children.
David, think about this. In the $4 trillion roughly that has been spent in the last 11 months, counting this additional $1.9 trillion that they're working towards, that's $6 trillion. That is more than the GDP of every country in the world except for China and the United States. If you divide that per individual in the United States, that would be a $17,000 check. I'd ask all Americans, have you received $17,000? We know the answer.
Right. By the way, there's one final thing I got to point to, and it's a small amount compared to these hundreds of billions we're talking about. But there's $100 million in this COVID bill for a special underground train in Silicon Valley. Now, Silicon Valley, of all the places in the world that has done well during the pandemic, it's Silicon Valley. They've made hundreds of billions of dollars, all of their companies, and yet they're going to get tax dollars, federal tax dollars from poor taxpayers in Kansas for their underground rail boondoggle, by the way. It's never going to be built. I mean, that just shows that this is more about special interests than it is COVID relief.
That's a prime example of how it's for all the wrong reasons. That's truly Pelosi's pay out there. And also look at the bridge that they're getting in New York.
Right.
Who's there? Schumer. It's just an unacceptable package at the expense of the working class.
Awful. Congressman Jason Smith, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.